Hi, everyone. I am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast, where anything can be possible, because when you believe you can, you will. This series is all about getting honest with ourselves and noticing the things that we carry with us. We each have our own life experiences to go from, and sometimes it's hard to truly understand what it's like to be someone else. What we can do to create change is to start with us. If each of us took one action each day in our own lives, we could collectively change the world around us. But what does it take? It takes work, it takes practice, and we have to be honest with ourselves as we get there. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, where I interview Brian Long and Jodi Bieber from JC and Company. Brian is a partner in the Wealth Management, Healthcare, and Tax Services groups in the Lancaster and Hilliard offices. Brian joined the firm in 1989. He is an experienced member of the firm's Wealth Management, Healthcare, and Tax Services group and has worked with companies in a variety of other industries, including real estate, construction, hospitality, and restaurants. He has worked with many middle market and private companies with JCC's client base. During his career, Brian has gained extensive experience in serving physicians with practice management. Jodi is the leader of the CAS practice at JC and Company. She loves jigsaw puzzles, and because of the use of puzzles, she has been great at creating workflows in the accounting process so that every piece fits into place, revealing the path for the clients to reach their goals. Over the past 17 years, she has worked extensively in developing payroll services and accounting so clients can focus on their business. During my interview with Brian and Jodi, we discussed the journey as a practice for developing a new service line such as client advisory services, or we call it CAS, what mindset it takes to create this type of practice, and how to continue to grow and scale. I hope you enjoy this interview with Brian and Jodi. Welcome to this episode of Breaking Beliefs, and I'm very happy to have Brian Long and Jodi Bieber from JC and Company. And before we get started with our interview, I would love if each of you can just give a brief little intro on yourselves and what you do. Brian, you want to start?
Sure. As you heard, I'm Brian Long. I'm with JC and Company. I'm actually our CEO of the accounting firm, and a little bit about myself that I've actually been practicing for about 32 years and involved in the firm. And it's one of those where I always say I'm really, really smart or I'm really, really dumb, because I started with the firm on Friday, 32 years ago. Graduated Friday, started on Monday, and I've been here ever since. So one of the best decisions I've ever made.
It's good to love what you do. And Jodi, you want to give a little background on yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jodi Bieber. Unlike Brian, I was not born at JC and Company. I have been with the firm for 17 years, mainly in payroll initially, and bookkeeping and accounting. So I've kind of evolved over the years and have a big role into trying growing our advisory practice side of our business right now.
Awesome. So I met Jodi and Brian as part of the CAS workshops that we do, putting business plans together, and have been so impressed with the process that they've gone through and the change management that they're still working through. But, wanted to start first of just your journey. And Brian, we'll start with you of kind of, why did you get into accounting in the first place? What actually was it that you liked about it? And were there accountants in your background of the reason why you got into it?
And I'll start with, my family are all engineers.
Oh, okay.
And I'm one of those fallen engineers that I never went into engineering, but I was, kind of like the stepchild for a while, no offense, that really didn't get a chance to ever want to be in the engineering field. And went to college thinking I was going to be an attorney. I was going to go into political science, worked at the State House as a page through undergrad, and then decided, you know what, if I don't get into law school, what am I going to do? And I took some business classes and ended up thinking, well, maybe this, and I think I changed my major 3 or 4 times from poli-sci to English to this, and still got out timely, but one of those where I took a couple accounting classes while I was still working and really liked it, and it clicked, and it must have been that pseudo math brain from the engineer side of things. But probably what I like more than anything is, as an accountant, even though stereotypically we're not allowed to really have a personality. Accounting gave me a personality in that I was allowed to talk to clients and really help them with their businesses and things like that. So that's always been my focus and why I ended up, ultimately on the accounting track and doing taxes. And it even ties into wealth management with me moving forward.
So why was it that, first off, why did you want to become an attorney?
More than anything, I wanted to get into politics someday.
Okay.
And related to that, my mom always told me that I was the stereotypical Philadelphia lawyer where I could argue my way out of anything. And she said, so your goal in life should be, you need to become an attorney and you need to do what you do best. So that's really how it ended up.
And once you got into it, you took business classes just in case you didn't get in. Was there some reason you thought you weren't going to get into law school, or you're just an overachiever?
Yeah, it was really more than anything that I thought, okay, being an attorney, there were so many of them, I'll say, at the time, and thinking about that. And then I thought, politics is a tough game. I don't want to know that I want to be out in front at all times and scrutinized at all times. And, like I said, and actually it was a computer science, MIS, Management Information Systems class. And I did really well in it. And, that's when you had to learn how to do Lotus 1, 2, 3 type thing prior to Excel. And it just kind of set me in the right direction. And I really didn't even do well in my first accounting class, but it came to me eventually.
Yeah. And it's funny about engineering. My son is in engineering, and I've met a lot of engineers, and I'm like, they do more accounting than the accountants.
Yes.
They don't warn them about that. It's, my son was purposely not going into accounting. I'm like, you're actually doing accounting.
Right. Exactly.
So Jodi, what about you? How did you get into accounting?
Well, let's see. When I was younger, I always wanted to be a veterinarian.
Oh, okay.
So I'd take my stuffed animals and I'd cut them open. I'd take their stuffing out, put them back in, and sew them back shut. And I cut their hair with scissors, and finally my mom says, "You're making a mess. Stop it." So I stopped it. No, but I've always liked puzzles, and to me, accounting is always like a puzzle to me. Mm-hmm. And I always enjoy finding out, how to make things all work, how to make things fit, so that everyone's happy with the end result and it means something to them. It's not just a matter of just putting some numbers on a piece of paper, but it means something. So That's always been my view and approach to accounting. I used to want to be a teacher, but after I took calculus in college, my very first semester, along with political science, which was a terrible first semester in college, and getting a D in political science and a C in calculus, I thought, maybe I don't want to be a math teacher.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a misnomer too about accounting so much. It's like about math, because it's so much more than that. And there's so much more complicated math than accounting. It's about balancing, but yeah, it's like everyone thinks you have to be good at math.
Yep.
So do you still do puzzles?
I do puzzles. I try to do them, a couple of them during tax season, because it's just my way of decompressing, where I don't have to think about work, and I just think about the puzzle pieces, and whatever's on the TV in the background is just background noise. I just kind of tone everything out. So yeah, it works out really well. And everybody else in my family is, including my husband, they're all very crafty. I can follow a recipe and I can follow directions, but I can't come up with it on my own. So
a good recipe for being an accountant.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Brian, when you what was your trajectory with this firm? So you started, you said, right out of college.
Yeah, right out of college, I was a staff accountant for 2 years. Then I became a senior accountant. It's super typical in the accounting
Right.
firm. 2 years as a senior, a year as a supervisor, 2 years as a manager, and then partner. And really, my whole goal from day one was I knew going into it, if I was going to go into this field and I liked it, I wanted to be a partner. So it was always a goal of mine.
And why was that?
I think more than anything, my dad actually had his own engineering firm. Obviously, being an engineer, he was always entrepreneurial. My parents were both entrepreneurial, and I just always, whatever field I decided to go into, I wanted to be an owner, help run the business, help really decide what's going on. Really, really get involved in steering how the firm will move and where it will go moving forward.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, at least with the firms that I work with, I find that isn't a skill that people realize, because a lot of people get, promoted into the next level, but it's not really about entrepreneurial thinking. It's about your skill set. And so once you get into those roles, you have to think like an owner, an entrepreneur versus a specialist. So
Right.
How was that mindset shift for you, and how have you seen you being able to do that in a very traditional accounting firm?
And it's funny that you say that, because I'm thinking, back. My brothers would tell everyone that since I'm the eldest, that I was bossy anyway. And you typically think of someone that, is in charge as bossy, which isn't the case always. But, I was always one of those that I always had an idea where I could at least explain what I wanted done. But you're exactly right that it's one of those where I guess if I were to go back to college today, the course that I never really had or learned was how to run a business.
Right.
How do you do it? What do you, where do you start? What's involved? I know that you need to know the underlying mechanics, but beyond that, it's almost like it seems like it's an innate thing that you just know, and you're one of those people or you're not one of those people. And I hate to say that, because I always want to say I can train good managers and good people, but sometimes it's like those that really are the ones that are going to drive a business or whatever, it's like been in their background or it's been in their blood or something.
Yeah. And you said both your parents were entrepreneurial?
Yes. My dad more so, because he had his own business, but my mom was always trying to do something that she could make money at. So same type thing.
Yeah. What kind of businesses did she have?
Well, there was at one point in time, she was a piano teacher and was trying to get that expanded into other areas. We actually, I believe it or not, I was raised on a sheep farm where we tried to raise and sell sheep and that kind of thing. We always had the farm where you had corn and beans and stuff like that. So it was more in that realm than anything.
Yeah. So what skills do you think you watched with them or were involved with that you now have kind of like, oh yeah, I remember them doing this, or kind of gave you confidence in order to do it in the firm?
I would say with my dad in the engineering firm, it's funny because I used to, in order to see, and my parents were divorced, in order to see him, he lived in New Jersey, and we would spend the summer with him. And we would get paid 25 cents an hour to run the blueprint machine for new buildings that were built and everything else. But we got to be there with him, kind of watching him in action. And, I still go back, this will actually put tears in my eyes, actually, because my dad's gone. But as it relates to that, in the evening, he probably would not come home until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. But if we stayed up, we got to go run with him. So we'd go run in the dark for 2-3 miles and just chit chat and talk about nothing type thing. And that's one of the things I remember most. So, you see a parent putting in extra time. Now we all talk about how do we do things quicker, smarter, easier, so we don't have to do that. We can have a family life. But I grew up knowing that work, I won't say work came first, but work was super important if you wanted to, do well in life.
Yeah. And I think I would think there's two lessons in that, right? With, also, work's important, and they didn't have my mom had a business, and I remember late nights because there was no computers to bring home, and
Right.
you had to work in the office, right? But then him making that time to, still do his hobby, but with you guys and talk about things that were happening.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's so important. So what about you, Jodi? What was your start with this in this firm, and how
My
yourself
start in the firm was my husband and I were moving back to Ohio from living in Kansas for 6 years. And I went back to the old firm I worked for and just didn't feel like it was the same atmosphere environment. So I just dropped off my resume and got the phone call and interviewed and started out as a preparer professional and mainly doing bookkeeping and payroll services. And then took a while to let everybody know that, what I could do, letting people let things go so I could show them that I can do this. It took a while for that, but then grew into, I had my associate's degree in accounting and I thought, I want more. So I went back to school, got my bachelor's degree in accounting. And, I'm always like, but then I wanted more. I wanted to be an expert in something.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and got my certified payroll professional certification through the American Payroll Association, and really used that to help get the payroll department that we have in our firm, up to where it is today. We do things successfully. We have a streamlined process and set procedures that we follow, and pricing packages, and did that kind of stuff. And then just kind of continue into showing, what I could do and taking charge of things. And now I'm a supervisor at the firm and have my hands on a lot of different pieces.
Yeah. So what do you think? And I think this is really important when you said I needed to show them what I could do. And as an example for others, because a lot of times, when working with staff people, they, want you to just notice, and we have to advocate for ourselves and actually manage up and talk about the things that we want and how we work there, not complain about the things that we want, but more like, how do we open up those doors and opportunities? So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you got them to take notice.
Well, it was one, and I experienced this today. So I've experienced it on both ends of the spectrum there, because when I was hired, it was like a lot of people were overwhelmed, had a lot to do, and didn't want to give it away, or maybe they had somebody before who just did a crappy job, and they didn't want to give it away again and have to take it back and clean it all up again. And now I'm exactly in that same position where, I'm overwhelmed. I have some things to do, and we have some staff. Maybe I just lack a little bit of trust, and somebody new, and can they do it? And do I have to invest a lot of time and helping them get there? So both ends of the spectrum there. But yeah, I just happened to tell somebody, hey, do you have anything I can do? I remember walking around the office saying, going from person to person, can I help you do something? Can I help you do something? And finally somebody said, yeah, can you do this? It's a little complicated. I said, oh yeah, I've done that before. And it just took me doing it for them to say, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
So just let me know that I could do it.
And can I interrupt and just say,
I want your
tying in with Jodi, that Jodi and I have a lot of the same personality traits. And we really don't knock heads, which is good. Normally, a lot of times the same personality traits, you'd knock heads. However, Jodi is very good at being assertive in that, Brian, you got a couple seconds? Boom, she's sitting at my table and she's telling me, here's what we need to do. And doesn't take no for an answer. And, not that that's a bad thing at all. It's, here's why. And she comes with her ducks in a row, all prepared.
Yes. And I think that's so important because, I think what gets lost a lot of times between staff and leadership is that you think that they know. And when you come prepared with an agenda and the outcomes that you want, the actions that you want, then it's easier for a leader to say, yes, we can do that. No, we can't do that. Or we have to wait on this. But it's so much more of a productive conversation than to go, I want a promotion and I'm just not getting a chance and so forth,
Yeah.
Well, I've learned over the years to try to be organized, that it makes things go a lot easier if you're having a conversation and you're organized in what it is you want to accomplish from that conversation.
Yeah. And so you've really kind of, and I would love to get both of your perspectives, but, client accounting services is just such a big area. in the accounting profession now, and it has been around for a long time, but not everybody was taking advantage of the opportunity. And as I see with a lot of firms, is they get into it but get in trouble very fast because they're trying to do it like they do the tax department or the audit department and so forth. So how did you get started with it and why?
Go ahead, Jodi.
Well, for me, again, over the past 3 years, probably, this is something we've kind of talked about a little bit before about what we wanted to do with growing our, some of our BOSS services, our back office support services, sorry. But doing some of that and just thinking, again, I'm thinking to myself, I want more.
Mm-hmm.
I want something different. I want something better. I want to have a better experience so that maybe I'm happier going to the office and working.
Mm-hmm.
And the client is happier with what they're getting. So that's where my mindset it has been. But then the pandemic really seemed to accelerate that more so because it changed the relationship with us and our clients and how we work together and all these changes. So trying to always think about ways to evolve, not getting stuck in a rut, trying to improve how everything works and the whole system. To me, that's where it is, and that's where I would like to be. That's where I want to put my focus on, is that part, and then we can tailor that, and that to me rolls into every other aspect of our firm once we can solidify something, and then it trickles down to everything else that we do, and it just makes a better working environment, better working relationship, and that's where I would like to have things be.
Yeah, and Brian, I know from a partnership level, it's sometimes hard to think about where to put your investments with limited resources. So why did you decide to invest in this area of your practice, and how did you come to that decision?
And honestly, it was easier for us with me because my father-in-law is a cardiologist. And I started dating my wife when we were 17 years old, and I saw that medical field and how physicians didn't know how to run businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first got started, 30 years ago, anytime one of our staffers would leave and they worked with one of our physicians in the firm, I took it over. And it got to the point where I was actually going in, showing the staff how to bill and code. I was going in, showing the staff how to do their HR. I was hiring, I was firing. So really was more involved in actually helping run their business, which ties right into client advisory services. And, I'd go in with the 10 items that we need to work on for this next month. And, it was part of our bullet points that we'd meet. Now, the pandemic changed it a tad in that I used to be putting 25, 30,000 miles on my car type of thing each year. And now I'm able to every few months, every whatever, and service clients better because we can actually do it through a Teams meeting or whatever, and everyone's comfortable with it. So it was an easy entree for us because I was already in that space to an extent. It was nice to have someone else that wanted to venture out and know the nitty-gritty of the product.
Yeah. And I think and it's a good point of the example you bring up, is for a lot of people, it's hard to even get their heads around what the service is. And it's more than bookkeeping. It's more than write-up. It is the actual getting to know the business, the operations of the business, how you can help them in their strategy, really rolling your sleeves up. But it takes a different type of skill set to do that. So how do you know you have the right people to be able to deliver that service at your firm?
We're still learning that, in all honesty. We've added people in the last year or two, and we've had some successes and we've had some failures. And a lot of it was they maybe didn't have the technical aspects of what they needed to do, but we thought they had the right personality. Mm-hmm. And I will say, anyone can run numbers. That's my thought process. It's someone that can take those numbers and convey them to a client and help them see what they need to do, or how to help them. That's the hard part. And I will say at our firm, to this day, even after the pandemic and Zoom and Teams meetings, we really only have about 3 people that do meetings on a regular basis. So we're still training the team and trying to beef it up and expand it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a really important thing where when I had a practice, I would have, some people that were really good technically, but the clients just didn't like them.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be like, but everything's right that they do and so forth. But if the client didn't like them, it was never going to work because they just didn't have enough personality or wasn't good at communication. And those are the things that people really don't understand about this practice is sometimes the technical skills aren't as important as the
Right.
interpersonal skills and
Yeah.
this type of service line. What do you think, Jody?
Yeah. And the one thing we did during tax season was we surveyed our staff and just asked them a lot of, basically about 10 questions we had, and some are point blank, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you like about being here? Because we want to know what that is. And sometimes it's hard to have those one-on-one conversations when, Brian might meet with them, but maybe they're not comfortable meeting with me, about things. So we can try to take advantage of some of those strengths and things like that and turn them into, positivity things for our firm. And then as accountants, though, we also, get stuck in a rut. Like we get stuck in just compliance. I got to get this return, that return. I got to do this meeting. But we want to expand that into just being like mundane. Like, here, we have this, we have to do these returns. Well, we don't want that to be just a return. We want that to be return with a conversation that shows the client, well, maybe we do some tax planning this year that gets you a different aspect. So the client isn't just thinking, well, I only talk to these people once a year type thing. Changing the relationship that we have and trying to make the staff see how important that is for us to do that. And it's not just about getting the tax return done. And we do struggle with trying to get people to get out of that box and want to have that conversation. So like Brian says, it's going to be ever evolving to me. I don't know if it's ever going to be something we finally figure out and this is what it's going to be. It's going to be something that's going to evolve and change.
Yeah, for sure. You learn all the time. So when you came into doing your roadmap plan, you've already had a practice. What were some of the things that are the reason why you came in to develop a kind of a V2 of your plan for this practice? Where were you falling short that you thought you needed to turn around as a practice or for the firm?
I would say that the overall buy-in of the staff is what was needed. Jody and I think, had already combined forces and made the decision. Here's where we're going, and this is the wave of the future, or what we should be doing with our clients, providing value-added services, not just what happened last year. Because at this point, we can't do anything for them. So really looking forward, thinking, and doing that. And I tend to be the 30,000-foot view person of here's the ultimate of what we need to have, and then Jody gets stuck with the nitty gritty stuff, where, let's plot the plan and then we work together to go. And so we really are working mostly on bringing the rest of the staff over to see how successful she and I are and how it is the wave of the accounting future. And, that's what we should be doing, because compliance is compliance. Anyone can do it. Someone can do it overseas for cheaper. You just never know. We provide value added by actually speaking with the clients and really getting involved in helping them make good business decisions.
Yeah. What would you say, Jody?
Well, I know Brian, like I said, Brian and I are similar in the fact that we attend a workshop or a class or something and we get highly motivated. It's like, oh man, we're going to do this. We're going to do this right now. This is exciting. But then we have to take a step back. It's like, okay, we can't do it so fast. We got to wait and see what we can realistically accomplish. Like, but he and I, and Brian's other partners will say, the same thing. Well, here comes Brian. He comes back from this webinar, his seminar for 3 days now. Here, what's he going to want to do now?
Yeah.
And I get the same way.
Making a joke with me that if I go on vacation, like I can't come back with new ideas. So
yeah.
Yep.
But you do. You get easily motivated. It's like, there's always something out there that can improve, the relationships. It can improve our firm, make us be more profitable, and be more attractive to new talent and things like that. So just keeping that open. And Brian and I are definitely open for change and new things.
Yeah. So what are some things that you've done based on your business plan, or how has it helped to kind of get people through that process of understanding where you're going, what you're doing, because it is a really important discussion, whether it's staff, whether it's other partners or managers, when you're making an investment in something like this, that there's always the what's in it for me factor of why would I put myself through this?
Yeah.
Why am I going to add work to myself to make this change? And how's it going to benefit me? So what have you seen that has helped the practice so far?
So far for us, like I said, it's still evolving. We need to have the meetings and communication with the staff and try to show them the success stories that we have had, where we have migrated clients into this platform, and we have been having the meetings with them and show them how it's changed the relationship with the client and made it better for everyone involved. So we need to kind of still have those staff meetings. It's going to take some longer than others. I know we will, just because, and also it's almost like burnout too, because, we've had the pandemic and all those tax laws that changed and PPP stuff coming in, and credits are trying to get our clients to take advantage of and helping them survive through the pandemic. And so sometimes staff are like, we don't want to change anything else. We want things to be, mundane for a little while. Can we please not have something different? But yeah, just having that conversation. We got to keep that conversation ongoing every month, if not every couple of weeks. It's not going to come quickly. It's going to be a system of change. And not only that, but how do we communicate through our website and having their input? Because we can have their input on there. Everyone feels value and heard. And that's important as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you'll see very quickly where those compilations that we used to do are going away, and should go away and should roll into, our advisory services. It's one of those things where ultimately we've now looked at all the clients in the firm that we do quote unquote bookkeeping for, and we're actually saying, okay, what's the next step? As in, is it a year from now? Is it 6 months from now? Is it 2 years from now? Any client that isn't on a platform that we feel like we're experts in and that we're going to deal with, have that hard conversation with the client. And if they're not willing to be in our bailiwick, then unfortunately they'll have to go elsewhere, because we really need to focus on what we do and do the best that we can do with those clients. And it's really this whole advisory space where we've made a conscious effort that we are going to get rid of clients in order to push forward with this direction.
I think that's really important, and so hard for so many people, no matter what they do, is understanding that whole, I'm okay with eliminating the wrong clients for the right clients, but going through the process of who is the right client and getting centered around that. So how did you get feedback to make sure you have the right client persona?
We surveyed our staff as we went through tax season. We had a one-page questionnaire basically about different aspects of each person. What industry were they in? Did they use technology? How did they communicate? Did they pay their bill timely? I think there was one more criteria. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we asked staff to fill it out as they were working on the tax returns. And then we give them a grade. And then we took all those, stuck them on a spreadsheet because we love spreadsheets, and then tried to see out who are our A, B, C, D clients.
And how did
And
that turn out?
It was funny how we all have our pet clients, because there were a number of clients that, let's say, pick on me. I know them. I like them. They're friends of mine. I gave them an A, even though they're awful clients, because they never follow anything we want to do. So we had some of that. But for the most part, it was really productive.
Yeah. Any overrides on those pet clients?
I think there were a few.
Yeah. That always comes up so much. It's like, well, I know they won't pay what we want, but they're really nice. But you can only hold on to so many of those, else you can never get to where you want to go, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, you have the ones that are a real pain in the butt, but you charge them everything and they pay the bill. So we keep doing it. There's a happy medium.
No, you're right. Just because you charge them a lot doesn't mean that they're the right fit for your practice. You really need to understand the personality that you want there, the industries and so forth. So the other big piece of this is technology investment. So how have you gone through the process of prioritizing the right technology and when? Because, it's an evolution over time, but it's, it can be a lot of investment as you're putting this practice together and figuring out what you need.
Yeah, with technology, we're heavy users of QuickBooks Online, and that's the main software we want to use for accounting services. And we have our own payroll services within the firm. So we actually, it works out really well. We do the payroll, we log into QuickBooks Online and record the payroll entries for the clients. So we already have that. But as far as still on our roadmap, we still need to think about a CRM. We still need to figure out, how are we really tracking our sales efforts, and making those touch points, even though it might not work out for the person who sought us out now, but maybe down the road a year, maybe it will work out for them. So still trying to keep maybe a touch point in there. So we still have to develop that, and then still developing, when we have those meetings with our clients, are we going to use Fathom to help some of those KPIs things that we want to discuss with clients, or are we going to use something else? So again, that is still evolving.
Mm-hmm. And Brian, how from a partner level have you convinced, your partner leadership in making these investments in technology, and how much, what kind of process do you go through?
Yeah, I guess I'd say for a small to medium sized firm that we are with 20 some people type thing, that we have always been good about technology and not afraid to expand. For example, we use all the Thompson suite of items. We use Virtual Office. For the size firm we are, I think we adopted Virtual Office very early, in all honesty, because it's pricey. And doing that. So the nice thing is, one of my partners that actually takes care of most of the technology, he's always been good to go. We've always had an IT company that we deal with, that they know what we want, and they've always been right on our side to help take care of things too. So for us, it's always just been a cost of doing business. For example, our PCs, we change out every 3-4 years, primarily because they just don't work as well. And, all these programs come with beefier things that they need in order to run properly.
Right.
So that's never been an issue, honestly.
Yeah, which is a really good point you made about, if you don't have it internally, making sure you've got a good partner for IT externally that can help advise the firm as well.
Right.
The right tech investments. So for people that maybe have these practices and struggling, or looking to start it, looking back now, what kind of advice would you give someone starting this practice that maybe you wish you had done a couple years ago?
I would say I wish that we had hired more people like Jodi, and given them the opportunity to help just fly and be free, for lack of a better term. Partners tend to get stuck in day-to-day running of the business, as opposed to, really looking at the nitty-gritty of what's going on with clients sometimes, or maybe get bogged down in that. And I think it's real important to have the right staff or the right people on board that are willing to take chances, take risks, try new things. And we as partners then aren't beating them up because this one failed, but this one did well, and kind of roll forward with it. Perfect example is we took our payroll company and we had an in-house service that we were, using our stuff. And we I won't say we outsourced the service, we outsourced the platform that we run on. And we went on blind faith with Miss Jodi over there in order to really come up with something. And it was bumpy, but we're getting there, so it's one of those things where long-term, I think. So really, more than anything, the long-winded answer, was just trust your people, and you need good people. Otherwise, you're just not going to get there.
Well, and I just want to drill into that for a moment, because it is, innovation is hard. And what happens a lot is people do get put in roles like that, but then trust in them, or something goes wrong and they're branded, just like you said, like it's bumpy, like doing anything new is hard. when you're learning it. So what do you guys do to make sure people can run within fences, I guess, so that they're not branded badly and they continue to keep innovating?
Yeah. And we have a monthly partner meeting. So anyone that has a project, let's say, we meet with them and have them present on progress. What's going right? What's going wrong? Do they need our assistance? And I would say, too, we're still small enough that we have open door policies so that, if Jody's totally frustrated, she can yell across, she and I are across the hall from one another. She can yell across the hall at me, and by golly, I yell across the hall at her too. And then Keith's next door to us, who's my other partner. So it's one of those where we have all of our people, for the most part, within a 500-foot radius type thing, that we are real collaborative with one another. So you find that maybe sometimes we smoke and joke more, smoke and joke more than we should. But it's one of those things that, we know one another, we like one another for the most part, we trust one another, and you just got to develop that over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jodi, what is some pitfalls that maybe you experience that you would suggest to others?
Let's see. What I would definitely suggest is you can't do everything. I tend to take on too much. I have always been that way, because if someone says something about, doing something in a meeting, whatever, and everyone sits there and you hear crickets, I'm like, well, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure it gets moved forward, it gets done and gets completed. But so I take on too much. But learning how to, trust, like Brian said, the staff that you have to do those things. They may not do it the same way you did it, but the end result is it gets done. And then having that feedback, offering the suggestions, but not just feeling like you have to do everything. You need to let go and know yourself, know what your limitations are, know what other people's strengths are, so that, you can take advantage of all those things and everyone feels supported. And then having some processes. I'm a big process person. So having some set defined processes that people can follow is important, because people don't feel lost when they're newly hired. Having a good onboarding process where the expectations are known from the get-go. It's important to have that stuff in there and not just kind of fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah, onboarding can be where everything falls apart. You get the sale and
Yep.
Yeah. We get them in the door and they're like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
I'm really good at selling it and bringing it in and saying, okay, Jodi, your turn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Awesome. And so with that, there's been some great tips, and appreciate your journey of where you're going. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or that you'd want to stress for the people listening to this podcast as a takeaway, is an important thing that you want people to know?
What I would say is having a plan is great and having goals are great, but don't make it so critical that if you don't meet that goal, the whole thing failed. Right. Be willing to modify and adjust as things evolve, because you don't know when a pandemic's going to start again. It's going to push off some of those things you thought you get accomplished, because now you have to deal with new things. So being flexible, still keeping to the plan, but not so much that you're not realistically planning when things can be accomplished. It's okay if sometimes be pushed back a couple months.
Yeah.
Not 2 years, but right. being flexible with that.
Well, and that's the whole thing, is you have it on a plan, whether you shift the date of when it happens, at least you're not, swimming around in your head with an idea and going, when will it happen? It's like, it's documented. Everyone knows that's where you want to go. So
it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay to move the deadline. Yes, exactly. What about you, Brian?
And I would say mine's a little more anecdotal in that, my wife always laughs at me, because anywhere we go, honestly, in the world, which is really freaky, that I get asked for directions. And it's one of those where I always say, you project confidence. you may not know what the heck you're doing. You may need to work some things out in order to get it there. But projecting that confidence helps you get in, move in the right direction. I'll say more than anything. And it's funny how just by doing that, again, I'm at that 30,000 foot view, that by projecting that confidence to those you're working with, I think makes a big difference, because they tend to buy into that confidence that, well, look, he's fine with it. Why shouldn't we be fine with it? I know there's a lot of little nooks and crannies we need to iron out, but we know we can do it. And here's why.
Yeah, love that. Really good. Even when, you got the plan, so you can at least know it's there and we've got a mission. And when that you're aligned with that, then you can feel better as you're going through it. So yeah, even on the bad days.
That's right.
Well, thank you both so much for sharing your story. And I'm sure so many listeners are going to be able to walk away with a lot of lessons. So thank you for coming on today.
Awesome.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
And now for my mindful moments with my interview from Brian and Jodi. Talking about their beginnings was very interesting. Brian first talked about how his family was all engineers, and he actually went to college to be an attorney and then only took business classes in case he didn't get into law school, and soon found that he loved accounting and he wanted to go into that field. Jodi, on the other hand, was looking to be a veterinarian. She loved taking care of her stuffed animals. I loved the stories that she talked about, but she also had the hobby of puzzles, which she still does today, and has found that the work that she does in client advisory services is really just like working on a puzzle, is finding all the pieces and fitting them together and really coming up with a solution that feels good at the end. So we talked about really how they started in this practice at JC and Company. And just starting off with Brian, he always had the goal to be a partner. He had the example of his parents being entrepreneurial themselves. And so he really wanted to run a business eventually. And he always had the idea that he could transform the lives of his clients based on the experience that he had watching his parents' businesses and really wanting to do the same for his clients. And so his dad, when he was younger, actually gave him that first experience of learning what it's like to run a small business and see the type of hard work that his father put in to be successful, which really gave him the belief system of how important work was and being dedicated, and also taking that time for his children as well when he'd get home from work, to be able to talk to them about their day and so forth, which we all know is so hard to create that balance when we're trying to drive our career and also have a family at the same time, which is something, as we're putting plans together, that we need to consider in anything we are doing, so we've got that time so that we can enjoy our personal life and our family and friends. Jodi started in bookkeeping, and she over and over said this quote that I want more. And she was just internally driven to keep learning and find new ways to not only improve the practice, but also improve the clients' lives as well. And she really had to learn how to manage up in order to start delivering new services within the firm. And I think this was a really important discussion, because a lot of times we wait for someone to tell us what to do versus speaking up and asking where we can help and show that we have the initiative to take on more work or to learn new things. And it was her assertiveness that Brian talked about, of really how this practice got off the ground because of her passion for it. And when she started it and they started working on these back office services, or BOSS is what they call their CAS practice, she started realizing that they could do more and that she wanted to do more and give more to their clients and trying to find ways that they could continue to evolve that practice so that they're not stuck in a rut of doing the same compliance services for these clients. And Brian's background really understanding the plight of entrepreneurs, and he talked about his father-in-law that was a cardiologist, really taught him what client advisory services is. It's beyond the numbers. The numbers are the things we need to do as a financial person, but going beyond that and really helping these small businesses have the discussions, answer their questions of things they want to do in their business, strategy that they want to do, and also what might be affecting the numbers that they have so that they can improve their operations or their results going forward. And that's really the benefit and the exciting part of doing a practice like this that I think a lot of people don't understand when they get into it. They might think of it as write-up or compliance services, but not realize that you're really rolling up your sleeves with your clients and learning about their business in a new way and taking that financial data and being able to become more intelligent about their business so that you can be that true valued partner with your clients. And so we talked about what they've learned over time having this CAS practice, and it comes all back to staffing. And I think a lot of times what I see with firms is that they look at the types of people they've hired in the past and put them in these positions with client advisory services, maybe not give them the right training, but they might not be the right fit. And so knowing that interpersonal skills and relationship skills are so important in the work that you do in client advisory services, it is important to develop those job descriptions first and then find the right fit for those jobs versus trying to place a person in there and make them fit into something that might not fit for them. And I liked the approach that they had during the workshop that they were with me in when we talked about, are we working with the right clients, and really drilling into the client personas, that they went and asked their staff to get involved in this process. And as they were doing work in busy season, rating those clients, talking about their personality, all of the things that are so important to remember, and you know it when you're in the trenches rather than trying to look back at it. And so when it was fresh, it was the perfect time to get that feedback so that they can make sure that they're working with the right clients going forward. So they asked their staff what they liked, what they didn't like, what kind of work that they like to do more than other types of work, how they wanted to contribute their value into the practice. And that really has helped in order to get the right buy-in of staff, but also the staff that doesn't buy into it, finding the right spots for them as well. And another tip that they talked about was making sure that you have continuous meetings and communication and talking about success stories that's ongoing every month. This isn't a one-time discussion. It's that you're constantly talking about what is happening with these clients, everybody sharing their experiences so that you can learn from everybody. And they've also learned how to start working on the messaging of their website so that it wasn't such traditional accounting terms, but really the things that their clients are looking for as well. Another topic that we covered was the importance of technology, and they have placed importance on technology, and putting the right investment in technology is really, really important when you want to create a practice like this, and to not look at it as a cost, but the return on investment when your automated and more repeatable process is in place. So Brian talked about how important it was to hire someone like Jodi and to get more people like Jodi, and make sure that you are also developing those personas about the right people to be on board that are willing to take those chances, and also create the environment where your staff feels it's okay to take chances. So he said that every month during their partner meetings, anyone that has a project is presenting how it's going, what's working, what's not working, so that it's very collaborative and they're able to give quick feedback, which I loved. Jodi really came back and said, make sure that you are being really honest with yourself on what you can do and not take on too much, not say yes to everything. What are you going to say no to make sure that you don't overstress your staff or yourself and you are focused on the right priorities. And we really left off with Jodi talking about that even when you put together one of these plans to make sure that your business scales, that you should be willing to modify and adjust as needed and really be flexible in the process and just confident in the fact that you've got a plan in place. And then Brian ended it talking about how to project confidence as you're going through the process, that knowing that you're going in the right direction, you might need to pivot here and there, but it's all worthwhile in the end. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.